Wonderful. So for tonight, we have the amazing Lauren Cohen with us. I was so excited to have Lauren on tonight. She is an expert in purchasing cross-border. She is an international realtor, lawyer. She founded her own podcast, Investing Across Borders, and really just the perfect person to go through all of the steps to make this a successful process in investing. So Lauren, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with my fellow Canadians. I am actually at a retreat in Aventura, Florida, with a whole bunch of Americans and one Canadian from Toronto, which is where I'm originally from the GTA. I grew up in Thornhill, and I moved to Florida over 20 years ago. And I have a business called Investing Across Borders, powered by eCounsel Global, where we teach you how to not only invest in real estate in the US and all over the world for that matter, but also how to immigrate if that's a path that you choose to pursue. I am the chair of the International Investment Committee for eXp Commercial, and I really love what I do. Our tagline is teaching our clients how to invest, live, work, and play across borders, because what's life about if not play, right?
Oh, I can agree with that. So just one more thing, guys, before we get started. I know everybody's already thinking of all their questions, so we will get to you. Don't worry, we're not just gonna talk at you for the next little bit. Throw your questions in the chat box, and once we are through, Lauren will be more than happy to answer any questions that pop up.
Well, now I'm going to caution you, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to contradict you, okay? But I can't answer all the questions. Anything that's specifically a legal question, you'll need to set up a separate call, because I'm not allowed to do that in a general platform like this. And actually that takes me to my first slide, which I'll quickly share, which is my disclaimer. Not only do we not guarantee, obviously we can't guarantee your investments, those are going to be up to you to choose, but I'm also not providing legal advice. This is general information that I'm sharing, and please don't rely on it because it may not apply to you. Too many people rely on information that lawyers share in their podcasts or their presentations, and they go and say, oh, but the lawyer said to do this. Well, not exactly. You have to see how it applies to your particular situation. And it's not one size fits all, and we'll go through that in a quick minute. So shall I continue, or do you have some more housekeeping or anything to do, Sarah?
No, that's perfect. So again, guys, we will blast out Lauren's contact info. So if we have those legal questions we can't answer on the call, we will absolutely be giving you information to book that one-on-one.
Yep. And I also do have, which is pretty fun, because we were so busy in the month of January when all the blizzards happened in Toronto and Montreal and pretty much everywhere except Vancouver, but we were busy with Vancouver too. We created a chatbot. And it's actually really fun. It's called you can find it at asklaurenesq.com, asklaurenesq.com. And if you go there, you can ask any question, and not that you're going to get all the answers, but it will at least help you to go and find some answers to some general questions and direct you to the right people to help you with your next steps. So this is a little bit more about me. As I mentioned, I'm originally from Toronto. I have an 11-year-old son. I have 2 dogs. And my personal story, which I just shared today in a room full of, 200 women, and I share quite often because it is what brought me to where I am today, is that on my return trip from my honeymoon on February 2nd, 2007, my then husband was expeditiously removed, put in immigration jail, subsequently deported. And they said to me, you can either go back to Canada or you can go home to Florida. And they deported his you-know-what, sent him back to Osaka, Japan, which is where we had flown in from. We were in Thailand on our honeymoon. And after they had released him from this immigration jail, and he was barred from entry. So after I spoke today, these people come up to me and they go, where is he now? I go, I don't know. But he's not allowed to come into the US. So that was my personal story, and actually what catapulted me to do what I do today to help other people avoid a similar fate, because it's very common to have stuff like that happen, and we try to make sure that those things don't happen. We did not have a good lawyer at the time, and I was not in the immigration world. So it said, I knew that my calling was there. I actually wrote a book called Finding Your Silver Lining in the Business Immigration Process, which became a #1 bestseller in 2017. And the preface of the book is all about my story. And then, of course, we talk about all the different immigration visas. So I'm not sure how many of you are just looking for real estate investment or other investment advice in terms of getting into the US investment market, because obviously the GTA and most of Canada is unattainable, or at least the cap rates are very low. So I definitely do that. And actually, as of today, we finally formally launched our page for that to get you into just real estate investing, but we also help you to invest and immigrate if that's a part of your plan. And immigration to the US does not mean you have to live here full time, which we'll talk about a little bit further. I'm very passionate about helping Canadians for obvious reasons, since I am one. And I've been featured in like all kinds of platforms. So you can find me pretty much anywhere. I'm pretty easy to find. And I launched my podcast in 2020. Although we're actually on hiatus right now because I've had long COVID for 7.5 months and I have voice issues. So forgive me if I stop and take a drink, but that's the way it is. It's been a lot of fun. So that's definitely not a very inaccurate statement. So these are the 10 mistakes that people most often make when investing across borders. Obviously, they're very self-explanatory. Most of them, most of you will know about, especially if you're realtors. Failing to hire the right professional team, waiting for the perfect time to take action, meaning you're waiting for the market to drop, you're waiting for this to happen, you're waiting for that to happen. You can't wait. You got to just bite the bullet and do it when the time is there. Hiring the least expensive professionals that might pay the most for their Google ads, but it doesn't mean they're the best, does it? Investing in the destination country. This is very common for Canadians without regard to what's going to happen to you when you bring the money back to Canada. Because we all know that Canada and Canadians invest in programs, coaching programs, all kinds of $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 coaching programs from the US that teach you how to invest in US real estate, but they have little or no regard to what happens to the money when it goes back to Canada, or even if it doesn't. So they tell you to set up an LLC and you don't realize that an LLC is a disregarded entity in Canada. And so you end up paying double tax. It's a big problem. Setting up the wrong legal structure, like I just said, not getting the right cross-border tax advice. I do literally nothing without my client, like nothing. I don't even engage an entity or anything. Doesn't matter if somebody says, I want to pay you, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. I'm sorry. You've got to do it right. It's not a one size fits all approach. So in other words, if you feel that, your friend did this, that doesn't mean that you're going to do that, because you might be in a different tax situation. You might be in a different bracket. You might have different goals. You might have the possibility of having a visa in your future. Investing without proper due diligence or analyzing the deals properly, overlooking the possible importance of a visa, which is a big deal. Running before you walk, that means you don't have a strategy, and we create short and long-term strategies because obviously things change. Look, COVID changed everything for so many of us, especially in Canada, and that's what's driven a lot of business to me in the past 6 months to a year, I would say, because people want options. They want flexibility, options, and most importantly, freedom, okay? Undercapitalizing or overinvesting your own funds, not using other people's money, that's the 10th. So these are just some client stories about how people try to, go and get the cheaper version or not have a collaborative approach or not have a holistic approach. And so they ended up hitting walls every step of the way. This client was permanently changed by, her investment portfolio was permanently changed by working with us, and we removed the struggle from the investment process. This client had been given misleading information by other experts, and they were skeptical about working with anybody else because they'd already spent a lot of money. But now they own not 18, it's actually 25 properties, and they live off the rental income. They're in, I think, 3 different states at the moment. This client was turned away when he was first applying for a visa. It was 3 years ago, and he was denied. The visa was denied, and he had sold his house. He was with his dogs and his kid, who just turned 20 actually last week. So at the time he was 16 or 17, and they were sitting at the border and they couldn't go through. And they found me. We had known each other from before. They found me on the internet, on LinkedIn actually, and connected with me, and I got their denial overturned. And here they are, very happy, living in Florida, about to do a renewal, okay? I just filed literally seven green cards in 2 weeks, because this EB-5 program, which some of you may have heard of, which is the program where you basically invest in a business and get a green card, and that business creates jobs. So the investment threshold, the minimum investment threshold went up last Tuesday from 500 to 800,000. So if you're interested in EV5, it's now 800,000. And I had 7 clients that decided within literally 12 days of that deadline, and we filed all 7, and we just got the receipts today. So they're in at the lower amount. So I saved them $300,000 each. So that's pretty good. 2.1 million, not bad for a few weeks work, right? Not bad.
That's why you
right?
need to talk to the experts and not just go with whoever's cheapest on Google, right?
That's right. And, people were arguing with me. Well, it says the amount is this. It says the amount. I said, look, I'm telling you what it is, right? You can see whatever you want because people are going to say what they want. And lawyers do it too. Like, not all lawyers are the most ethical people, but I didn't say that, right? Especially in Florida. But that's another story.
It's also just skill levels, right? We see that in anything. It's the skill of the professional you're working with a lot of times dictates the experience you're going to have.
100%. And also, Sarah, to add to that, one thing that's very unique about our company. So, most of you as Canadians will not, fortunately, have had the experience of working with some immigration attorneys because you're probably in Canada, you've been born in Canada, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, not blah, blah, but you know what I'm saying. I, too, was in that situation. But when my ex-husband was deported, I needed to find better counsel than he had already hired. I had counsel. My guy was awesome, but he didn't deal with these. It was a criminal thing, and it's a long story, but he didn't deal with that. So I had to find the best, and I did. But in the process, I also decided to learn how to deal with these things myself, because at the end of the day, sometimes we have to take matters in our own hands. The point is that the immigration bar as a rule, which is a little different than in Canada. Like today, one of my staff members was reviewing an article that we're having published. And she put in there that I decided to graduate from law school, as a corporate lawyer. But in Canada, you don't do that. You don't get pigeonholed. Maybe now you do, I don't know. But at the time, you were like, you're a barrister and solicitor, and you graduate, you get your JD now, and that's it. You're done. You can choose whatever path you want. In the US, it's not like that. So for immigration lawyers, they're kind of in a box, okay? And they are not business people. They're not, as a rule. Now I'm generalizing, but so they don't think about the business side of immigration. They think about how can you immigrate, but they probably never run a business other than their law firm. And they don't necessarily understand how to read a profit and loss statement, how to help you analyze a business, make invest in real estate. They've never done a real estate transaction other than maybe for their own selves. So you have to think about that, because our business is extremely holistic, which is, I think, why I became so popular, because we aren't just looking at the immigration piece. We're looking at the business piece and the structure piece and the tax piece and all aspects of your process. Because at the end of the day, you're not just moving a person, you're moving a family. And it's there's a lot involved in that. And you don't want to have to move your family back after you've moved them here. So, and now there's also this added complexity of the vaccination. And what does that mean for everything? And we'll talk about that a little bit. It's always the elephant in the room, but it is a factor that needs to be considered when you're dealing with investing, not necessarily investing, but if you want a visa, it's definitely a factor. So what's in it for you? And obviously some of this is very winter centric, and we're almost, thank God, out of winter. For you guys, it's a beautiful day here. I don't want to tell you, you'll probably be like, what is she talking about? That's so mean. But
it's like yes, +5 in Ontario today. So we're in like tropical spring temperatures.
Tropical spring. Right, so here, I think it's about 25 or so, maybe 26 Celsius. And it's absolutely stunning and beautiful. But yes, spring is beautiful in Ontario with tulips. I do miss tulips. So there you go. What are some of the key advantages? Well, you're going to get out of lockdown. You're going to avoid the winter. Whether this winter is over or not, there's another one coming, okay? And we want to get you to the sunshine and create options for yourself and your family, and have you invest in real estate and vacation. And by the way, we do on Tuesday nights and Sundays, and please ask Jennifer and Sarah about this, but we do presentations about many, many amazing projects in Orlando that we are promoting, and we would love to share them with you. And they're great projects because they allow you to have turnkey real estate investments in the US. Still, you need the structure in place. It's very important. People don't understand. They're often investing way too often. I had a client today, or a prospect reached out to me, was referred to me, and they want to buy property. So they want to set up a structure. And she said, well, why can't I just buy an LLC online? Or why can't I just pay the $500, whatever? I go, because if you do, you're going to end up paying the CRA and the IRS every cent that you make because it's going to be a disregarded entity, and nobody cares about that. So way too many people are misguided into doing that. We don't want that to happen. Even though the first year it might hit you that you have to pay X to get everything set up properly, by the second or third year, you're going to offset that because you're not going to be paying that to the CRA and the IRS. Because at the end of the day, that's really not why you're investing in real estate, is it? If it is, you might want to think about something else. So
who wants to pay double taxes, right?
Exactly.
I don't think anyone's going to say yes to that.
No, I've never seen a person yet, but for some reason, they don't think that they're going to, but they still do the wrong thing. Okay. And it's just so common because they want cheap and cheerful and they don't realize the implications of doing things that way. And it's definitely a problem. Okay. So this slide, which is available as a download, is talking about all of the different business visas. It's a really cute little avatar, obviously, slide that tells you what each visa involves. Some of them are immigrant visas. Some of them are non-immigrant visas, okay? The ones that are most common, especially for Canadians, are the middle ones, the E2 and the E1. Neither of these leads to a green card. However, we are very creative and we can always find a way to get you to a green card. But the E2 and the E1 are amazing visas that are based on treaty. The first, the E2, is the most common. I call it in my book, the coveted visa. Everybody wants one. It's a 5-year renewable visa that basically you could hold forever. And the beauty of it is, especially if you're a high net worth individual, you don't necessarily have to become a US taxpayer, and you don't necessarily have to have an exit strategy from Canada. The same goes for the E1. The E2 is based on investment. The E1 is based on trade. We'll talk a little bit more about what, especially the E2 in just a moment, but suffice it to say that they're based on treaty. Canada has this treaty and it's a great option because if you make a substantial investment or you do substantial trade between Canada and the US, you can qualify for this visa. And it's just a great option. These are just some of the benefits of getting a US visa where you can work legally. You have, it's a moderate capital investment. Your spouse can work, your kids can go to school. You're able to travel freely. And there are exceptions to this, which we'll talk about. It's renewable. In other words, you can stay indefinitely pretty much. You obtain a US Social Security number. That's the number one thing, because guess what happens? Then you get to build US credit and access mortgages. And yes, we do have some lenders that are specifically for Canadians investing in non-owner occupied US real estate. So that's a great thing. And they actually sponsor my podcast. You get legal status in the US, and you can freely invest in real estate and other endeavors, obviously. And it's a relatively quick and painless process. And in brackets, I've of course put with the right team. Little self-serving, but it's really true, because without the right team, you're going to end up banging your head against the wall. And then you'll come back and say, well, I already spent all this money. How come I didn't get it? Well, because they didn't really know what they were doing. That's just a common problem, unfortunately. It puts a bad taste in our mouth. This slide, which is also available as a download, and I will put all the downloads in the chat at the end or give them to Sarah to share. But this slide on the left side is, what do we do if we want a visa? How can we get that visa? What steps do we need to take? You need to find a business, you need to get a bank account, you need to get a tax ID, you need to put a lease in place, and so on. On the right side is all the steps that are involved in actually getting the visa. So you've now found your business. Now you need to go into getting your visa. How does that look? So these are all of the steps involved in not only finding the business, but getting the visa.
So with the visa, the whole idea is this is just going to give you more options, right? The visa allows you to then, you're not just pigeonholed, to use your language from earlier. It gives you more options for investing and enjoying your investment on US soil.
Correct. Now, there are requirements because you do have to have a business. So what does that mean? So that means you have to invest. Now, you're not going to invest in a single family home and say, I bought $1 million home, I want a visa. No, that's not a business. If you have 10 single family homes and you're renting them out as Airbnbs and you're hiring people, that's a business. You may end up with the same investment amount. Maybe they're each 100,000, but now you've got a business that you're running because you need to hire people to, maintain the grounds and do logistics and do all of the property management and all of these kind of things. So it's a pretty neat option. And we actually, we just love it. And you'll see in a moment that I created a program called How to Immigrate Through Real Estate, which is really focusing on how to make that actually happen. So this is just some of the details, further details about the E2 and E1. As I mentioned, they don't lead directly to a green card, but we do have ways to get you a green card through the E2 and E1 process. Now, one thing that's important is if you are not vaccinated, which is less of an issue today than it seemed to be 2 months ago. But however, who knows? Because obviously, they're changing some of the rules. But to get a green card, it's mandatory to be vaccinated. To get a visa, it's not yet. It probably will be. So what does that mean? If you're not vaccinated and you want a visa, get your butt over the border as soon as you can, and then we can apply for what's called a change of status visa. And the change of status visa is a 2-year, instead of 5, 2-year renewable visa. The only real downside of it is that you can't travel. But if you're not vaccinated, you're going to have a problem traveling anyway, because, they have rules going in, they have rules coming out, so it's basically the best option for those that are not vaccinated, because you can do it within the US. It's much quicker. It actually gets processed in 15 days, whereas you could be waiting as long as 6 months or more to get an interview at the Toronto consulate. But it's a much better, more viable option with the consulate, especially if you're vaccinated. Okay, this slide talks a little bit about that impact of vaccination. So this slide is the 10 steps to immigrate through real estate, which again is also available as downloads. So some of them are available as downloads. I don't share the whole slide deck. But this slide basically has put us on the map, because a lot of lawyers especially are like, no, you can't use real estate. Well, why? Because an E2 is based on your money being at risk. How at risk is it with real estate? Okay. Also, real estate is seen as passive, because flipping in the US is a passive business, whereas in Canada, it's an active business. So what our superpower is taking that passive business, that challenging real estate investing, well, you're getting a tangible asset, and turning it through a story that we write in the business plan into an active business that can qualify and doesn't raise eyebrows and red flags. Okay. So these 10 steps, 1 through 8, are applicable whether you're getting a visa or not. Okay, from your recommended investment to what you want to invest in. Now, we love, for real estate investors, helping them buy franchises or businesses that are complementary to real estate investing, so that your visa is not dependent on the underlying real estate. Why? Well, what if you sell that building, or what if you sell those properties or whatever? Suddenly your whole visa changes and you have to file an amended or restated business plan. Well, you don't want to necessarily do that. So we want to give you flexibility. So we love franchises and complementary businesses. We could talk further about that at a consult. Cross-border tax guidance, as I said, I don't do anything without my cross-border tax guy. He's actually originally from Ottawa, and we found him his house in Boca Raton. I drive by it every day when I take my son to school, which is kind of funny. So it's really nice. He's always there for my clients, and he's doing my taxes this year. So there you go. Asset protection. We want to make sure that you protect your assets on both sides of the border. So we're going to make sure that you have the right guidance for that. We don't do all these things necessarily directly. We just guide you on making sure you have them in place. Like, for example, number 6, professional consulting. We aren't financial advisors. We want you to have one because we want the financial advisor to help with some of the investment decisions. Your ideal structure is going to be dictated by the tax guidance, and then we're going to implement that and set up the right entities. Financing, as I mentioned, we have that available. There are many options for Canadians, even though you think that there aren't, there are. And there are more and more every day. Business plan, always super important. We've been writing business plans for over 2 decades, specifically for visas. And of course, number 9 is the visa application itself, which is the business plan is the single most important document, but then that goes into the petition, and then that's what gets filed and hopefully approved. I've never had a denial. I'm not starting now, okay? But then after that, that's really when the work starts, because now you have your visa. Now we've got to keep that thing. We've got to get that business successful. So we actually have post-visa training and consulting and coaching and so on, because the last thing you want to do is get the visa, move your family, be here and sit pretty, and then realize I can't renew because I have no income. I didn't hire anybody, and so on. Okay. So really important to understand.
So your company helps with that too. It's not just the initial process. It's
correct.
We're going to make sure you keep that visa.
We want you to keep the visa. Exactly.
Got it.
Now, I mentioned EB5 a little bit ago, and EB5 is the program where you can invest now $800,000. Oh, look, I didn't change the amounts yet. It just changed last Tuesday. $800,000 and $1.05 million, which is a weird number, $1,050,000. No idea where that number came from, but that's the number, okay? So whatever, but and the 800 versus 1.05 is dependent on location. Either way, you have to create 10 new jobs. For the most part, most people that invest in this program invest passively into a third party's project that they're creating the jobs. And it's almost like investing in a limited partnership or something. But this way you get a path to a green card, okay? And you can do whatever you want once you have that green card. You can sit at the pool, you can work, you can do whatever. You can run your own business. This is just a path to helping you get a green card. You can also use your E2 business to pave the path to this if you'd like. So you can also run a business. Most people choose to do it passively. Can real estate investments qualify? As I mentioned, they can. You don't want to be owning a rental property or have an asset holding company or buy and flip, unless you're buying and flipping 40 units a month or something like that, or any type of passive business. You have to be directing and developing the actual business itself, or it won't meet the requirements. You have to be managing and directing the enterprise, right? And these are some of the options that do work: BRRRR, managing multiple rental properties, commercial properties, Airbnbs, managing multifamily properties, mobile home parks, self-storage, stuff like that. So again, it's just turning these options, other than REITs, into active businesses. Why won't REITs qualify? Because they're passive. If you're, on the other hand, the founder of the REIT or the developer of the REIT or the syndication, then you have a business because you're raising money and you're doing this. So as long as you have security stuff in place, you're good to go. Now this next slide is probably something most of you are going to want. It's the 10 steps to successful US real estate investing. This is applicable whether you want a visa or not, if you are going to be investing in US real estate. And again, this is also available as a download. So, and this is what we present on Tuesdays and Sundays. It's, you want to follow all these steps very carefully if you want to avoid double taxation and make sure that you're not only legally sound, but financially sound as well. So I am going to flip over, this is obviously a little self-serving, why work with us and details about what we do and so on and so forth. And I wanted to make sure that we left enough time for questions. So I am going to turn it over. I'm going to go back to my first slide and I'm going to turn it over to Sarah.
So good. Wow. My head's just spinning with all of that information. So Lauren, do you work with people that maybe are investing that aren't looking at the visas or?
Yeah, that's why this slide. So I'll go back to this particular slide because this is going to be the most relevant. So we work with, I would say, especially now, because of the demand for US real estate investing, I would say about 30% of our clients are just real estate investors. They are not planning to get a visa, at least not now. Now, some of them might plan for it in the future, but that's not in their immediate plans.
Okay, so that's something that then you could change. So if I just want to invest, I don't want to deal with this visa stuff. And then in 2 years, I decide, you know what? This is looking pretty good. There's still options to then move into that at a later time.
Well, sort of. So I say sort of because you're not necessarily going to be able to use the investments that you invested in to qualify for that visa later unless you have it contemplated. Because, if you have 1 or 2 long-term single-family home investments, they're not really going to help much with the visa. So you should at least have the idea of that in mind when you start investing. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't make the investments. It's not going to hurt it, but it's not necessarily going to help it either.
Okay, so just again thinking, okay, so this is maybe the path I'm going for, so not taking off any options off the table.
Right, exactly.
Now, with the visas, this sounds incredibly complicated. If I just want to invest in real estate, why is it useful to work with your company, to work with someone like you with this expertise when we're not doing all that complicated visa applications?
Sure. Well, because otherwise you're going to end up probably setting up the wrong entity structure or using the wrong lawyers or not having the right pieces in place or not speaking to the cross-border tax advisor or not following these steps properly or not implementing them properly or not having a real estate a strategy for your real estate investing. And so you're going to end up hitting brick walls. And I'll give you a perfect example. So I have a business partner in a new business we're actually launching Thursday. It's called Strategic Real Estate Investing in a Box. Why are we launching it? Because we realized that there was so much demand on the part of Canadians for the opportunity to not only invest in real estate, but also potentially get a visa. And most real estate investors are not necessarily business people. They don't want to run a business. So we're giving them all the tools to develop a business and potentially qualify for a visa and get through their first investment. My partner in this, her name is Carolyn Gallardo. And Carolyn, I think it was about 10 years ago, invested in, I'm not going to say the name of the company, a very big US coaching company. She paid $40,000, started investing in Columbus, Ohio, and she had a nice portfolio, and it completely fell apart because she ended up having to pay all of her income to the CRA because she set up the wrong entity. Exactly. We didn't know each other, obviously. This was her first foray into the US, and she was following what they said to a T, but they didn't care about what that meant for her in Canada. And so that's why you need to work with a team like ours to help you through the steps. We have a client right now that invests in Utah. They set up all the wrong entities. So now we're fixing everything. We're doing backtracking. It's taking time, and it takes more time to fix things than to do them right the first time. And obviously more money too.
I think that's a rule of life. It always takes more time and more money to fix something if you don't do it right the first time.
Right.
And I think we all just kind of shuddered a bit at the thought of all of our money going to the government and taxes. I think
it's never fun. That's really not why we're making it, is it? We're not making it to give it to them. We're making it to keep it hopefully for ourselves and our children and so on. So it's definitely
it's rough enough at tax time without
it's bad enough
100% taxation.
Exactly. Especially doesn't matter what country you're in. You're not making money so you can pay the tax guy.
Oh, exactly. Okay, so we have a couple questions here in the chat box. So guys, we're going to get into some Q&As. I definitely have more questions for Lauren, and I don't want to monopolize this, so please throw your questions in the chat box here. So we had a question from Janice. Which bank is the best? We've heard Royal and BMO, TD. Is there brokers down there too? Is it just bank mortgages? There's a whole bunch of questions.
Okay, so regarding which bank is the best, I can't answer that question because which bank is the best is going to depend on you and your banking situation, right? So, and your banking relationships. What I can tell you is that RBC is good, TD is good, but a lot of paperwork. I have some resources. I'm going to put one in the chat that's called Lendi. And Lendi, as I mentioned, funds non-owner occupied U.S. real estate investment on the part of Canadians and some other foreign investors, but focused mainly on Canadians. And they are an Israeli-based artificial intelligence company that basically replaces mortgages. And the main requirement is that you need to have an entity in place, okay? So I'm putting this in the chat in a moment. Yep, and here is the link for that. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. The process is easy and painless. So I think if it ever wants to go in the chat, maybe I think wants to go. If not, doesn't want to paste into the chat.
If it doesn't paste, Lauren, you can just send it to me and I will make sure to blast it out.
I will send it.
Again, technology on a Monday, right? Sometimes it works. Exactly. Sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
So do they still use mortgage brokers down there, or this is the company that
No. Mortgage brokers, absolutely. This is the best option for Canadians investing in US real estate. I have other options too. Such as some direct lenders that go like kind of outside of the box, and they are available to my clients, as I mentioned. So I'm still trying to do this because now it's aggravating me, but I'm going to get there. So in the meantime, I stopped sharing my screen so you guys wouldn't see me making mistakes. So that was important. But you want to go ahead and ask the next question?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
So Kathleen said, what timelines are you currently seeing for that E2 processing? 3-4 months longer? It sounded like longer when you talked earlier.
Yeah. So originally it was it used to be 2 to 3 months, and it went up to like 10 months during COVID because they were on such a backlog. Now we're getting back to the 3 to 6 months. So it's not so bad as it was during the height of COVID when the consulate was closed, which really was what contributed to the huge delays. I just had a client whose visa was processed January 31st, and we applied on December 6th. So most of the time, my clients are taking a little longer, but it is a possibility to do it that quickly.
And is it the consulate? Is it always the process that slows it down, or is it dependent depending on what's on my
So
application.
it's a little, no, they aren't even looking. They're just putting it in a queue. Okay. But there's two parts of the process. The first part is you finding your business, making the investment, getting your bank account, getting your structure, all of those things. The second part is, okay, now we have our package. Now we submit and wait. It's the submitting and waiting. So you're in control of part one. Okay. They're in control of part two.
Got it. So that makes sense. It's not as scary then, because it's all just, it seems like it's rocking and rolling again.
Right. It is for the most part.
Awesome. So another question here. What if I just want to buy a house in the US and go a couple months a year for personal use?
Yeah. So then you would look at just the real estate investing cross borders and the 10 steps, which I'll put in here now. But you'd still want to set up some type of structure, unless you don't want to rent it out. If you have no intention of ever renting it out, you really don't need to worry about how, even if you make the investment in your personal names, it only becomes an issue if you're making any money there. But you want to really at least consider the possibility of making money there, because otherwise, to have it for a few months for yourself and leave it vacant these days doesn't even really make a lot of sense.
So even if we're not looking at it in terms of a business, I'm going into this solely as money making, even if it's personal use, you'd want to consider renting it out to even just offset the cost. You get a free vacation when you go down for those few months. Exactly. Everybody loves free vacations.
Yeah. And also, actually, I was just going to say that with some of these projects that we present on Tuesdays, and for the realtors in the room, there's an opportunity to get referral fees as well. But for these projects, some of them actually will reimburse you for travel costs if you end up buying a unit with them, which is really nice. I'd love somebody to reimburse me for travel costs.
Yes, please. Sign me up for that. I get to go somewhere that's actually tropical and they're really free. I like that.
I see a question in the Q&A. Can you focus on the scenario? Oh, that was it. That was the question you just asked me, right? I think, what are the pros and cons or watch outs or without the visa? It's not really about pros and cons. It's really about what makes sense for you. Everybody, or not everybody, lots of people just want to invest, especially right now. Even though the market is as hot in Florida, believe it or not, as it is in Toronto, because it's never been like this in my whole time of being here, ever. I mean, my partner just had an open house 2 weeks ago, and there were 500 people at the open house. Yeah, we go over asking 20, 30% on almost every property. So now I am not a production agent. I am a referral agent. So I'm a very good referral agent. So if you guys want referrals to, wherever you're specifically located in various parts of Ontario, I do have people always asking. So where are some of the great places to invest? So that's a question that's as loaded as any other, because I could say like Indianapolis, Indiana, but maybe Indianapolis, Indiana is not the right place for you because you want a vacation home. And maybe you want a vacation home for yourself, but you want to have appreciation. That might be Atlanta. Then do you want to buy cheap and cheerful? That might be Ohio. So it's really, it's like I said at the beginning, it's never going to be one size fits all. Okay.
So then that comes to then reaching out to you guys and saying, this is what I'm looking for.
Right.
And this is what I want. So what does this look like based on your experience? What states am I investing in to get what I'm looking for?
That's right. And we cannot always guide you on that either. Sometimes you're going to have to do the work on your own. I can't tell you because I don't know every state. I don't know what the market is like in every state. You're going to have to do a little research, and then you'll come up with 2 or 3, and we'll connect you with the realtors or the Jones team will, and then you can figure that out. All we are going to do is make sure that you have the right structure in place. I see the question about the minimum investment. So as a rule of thumb, the minimum investment is around 100,000. There is no set number anywhere about the E2. Everybody says, oh, I have to invest 100,000. No, you don't. And it may not even, 100,000 may not be enough in certain businesses. Like if you're buying setting up a manufacturing plant, you're going to need a lot more than 100,000. But if you're doing a service business, it might be a little bit less. Okay. Franchises are turnkey. Generally, you're going to get in for around 100, 150 all in. Is there any benefit to being a dual citizen living in Canada and investing in US properties? Well, you have a social, so you'll be able to build credit much more quickly. But you still need to deal with the structure being set up properly because you're still going to be a Canadian resident investing in U.S. real estate. Is it true that property taxes are higher for non-residents? Yes.
A lot higher?
Depends on the state. What are the costs of applying for an E2? It really depends on what you're looking for. I will put in the chat here something. Now that's our full service program, and it's $35,500, but that includes everything from helping you find the business, to setting up your structure, to setting up the entities, to doing the business plan, to doing the visa application, everything except filing fees. So we're full service. I don't do piecemeal, but and we also do it in 3 phases, which is nice. So if let's say you start with phase 1 and you don't find a business, or you don't get across the border, or something happens, we only go to phase 2 once you found your business and set up your entities. And then we go to phase 2.
Okay, so it's not pushing everything through. You go through them stage by stage to keep it going smooth.
Correct.
Awesome. I had a question here about PRECs, personal real estate corporations, and says, I've been back and forth from PREC with BC and Alberta. Is that useful to have one here?
It's nothing. There's no such thing in the US. We have, if you're a realtor, we have PAs, but there's no such thing as a personal real estate corporation in the US.
Okay. Got it. So I think do we have any other questions, guys? So much information today. Okay, I'll give it another minute to throw it in here. So I will be making sure to let everyone, we will be blasting out Lauren's contact information this week, and also links to get some of the downloads that she was talking about today, get information, and of course, podcast, contact information, all of this, so you can reach out to Lauren's company. So we have that here as well. Again, if you miss it, if you're not somewhere you can write this down, don't worry about it. I will be blasting all of this out in a dedicated email to everyone here. So yeah, I see a lot of comments. I think we're all thinking, okay, so I guess we're investing in the States now. This sounds really good.
It's not let me tell you one thing that I have learned through doing this as long as I have. And, I grew up in Canada, and when I was young, we used to drive to Florida every year, and my parents would talk about moving here. And it was like a little pipe dream, like you never thought it could really happen. Now, the pandemic has actually pushed people to say, I'm done. I'm fed up. I don't want to be locked down. I don't want to be told what to do. I don't want to do whatever. I want freedom. And right now, that's really what I'm selling, sunshine and freedom. And who doesn't want those two things, right? But what I've noticed is people get, and this is what happened with my family, it was just a pipe dream. It doesn't have to be a pipe dream, especially just to invest, because it's really easy. All you need is to have your hand held so you can take that first step and make sure that you do it the right way. Because if you do it the wrong way, you will end up paying the price, whether it's because you're paying the CRA or the IRS or both, or because you can't get back and forth across the border, because you could potentially be stopped. You don't want to tell them that you're running a business until you have a visa. You can own a piece of real estate, but you can't be renting it out and running a business. That is not kosher. So you need that structure and that guidance in place from the get-go.
Okay. One more question here. What if you're a resident of Canada, but you have a passport for another company?
Well, that's really, so are you saying a PR, like a permanent resident of Canada? You don't have citizenship yet? Is that what you're saying?
If you can just throw the clarification.
And what is your nationality? Okay, that's easy. Germany is a E2 country. So if you said India, I'd say, oh, not good, because India doesn't have the treaty. Remember I mentioned that each of them, and if your husband's Canadian, you're fine, because then you do it through your husband and you're covered, okay? But if you're from a non-E2 country and you're a PR in Canada, you can't qualify. But of course, if you're married to a Canadian, you can. Oh, and I'll mention one more thing. The beauty of the E2, especially for spouses, is that one spouse gets the visa and the other spouse gets a work authorization. That work authorization allows you to do pretty much whatever you want, including getting your real estate license. Now, you can get your real estate license if you're the E2 visa holder, but you can't work with buyers, sellers, and investors. That's only for the derivative. It's confusing, but suffice it to say that if your spouse wants to be a realtor, is a realtor, you know how long it takes to become a realtor in Florida? 63 hours.
What?
63 hours. Now, when I was in Ontario and I was a lawyer, because I'm still a lawyer in Ontario, actually, they used to have a thing where, like when I was first a lawyer, all you had to do was take the exam, the real estate exam, and you got your license, like it is for lawyers in Florida. Not anymore. You have to go to Humber College or whatever it is and do the same stuff. So last year, when I thought the pandemic was going to be over and I was planning to come home for the summer, I was like, oh, I'll get my license. And I'm like, I don't think so. That's just not happening. 63 hours, okay? And it's a 14-hour renewal, which like takes you 3 hours, really. So yeah.
So, like one work week, like a little bit of a hustle work week, and you can be licensed to sell real estate. And it's not
really 63 hours, okay?
I spent more than that on the first real estate course, I believe.
And it's like $800 or some crazy thing. Yeah, it's okay. So it's like a no-brainer. So for a lot of my real estate investment clients, they buy a real estate type franchise, like a maid cleaning service or a property management company or an inspection company or something that complements real estate investing. And they get their visa. And then they then get their real estate license, like especially with the property management company, you need it. And then they not only get access to their own deals, but all kinds of other deals. And even if all you're getting is the referral fee, rather than being a production agent, you're still saving an S load of money. You know what the S is for, okay?
Oh my gosh. Okay, 63 hours, you just blew my mind with that.
63 hours. You have to have an E2 to get it. Well, you have to have a visa to get a Social Security. Not necessarily an E2, but a visa of some sort to get a social, yes.
And it doesn't sound, honestly, before coming into this, I thought it was this big thing to invest in, especially to get a visa to live and work in the United States.
It's really not that bad.
This is a lot more doable.
Yes. And I'll tell all of you, please, to link up with me on Facebook. Okay, my whole brand is around investing across borders. I did put our generic email in the chat. You can go to investingacrossborders.net, but just hook up with me on LinkedIn or Facebook or TikTok or Instagram or whatever, because we have a lot of really good tips and information that we share on a daily basis. So stay tuned. We share immigration facts, I think, every Friday, about different things that are related to immigration. You can always grab a copy of my book on Amazon. It's only I think it's $15 Canadian. So yeah, I'm not making any money there, let me tell you that. But it's fun, and it's an easy book to follow. It's just like a guide, really, and it takes you through every one of these visas. It's like a little Bible. And you can hear my whole story about what really happened with that ex-husband. So anyway, on that note, I'm going to thank everybody. Oh, that's very, very funny, Amy. What's that for? I'm going to thank everybody. Thank you for having me here. And
thank you so much.
I wish everybody a very happy spring, and hopefully we'll be connected very soon. Okay?
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lauren. Everyone, we will blast all this out, and we will see you all next month. Have an awesome night.
Take good care. Bye for now.
Bye.